All right, so I'm going to begin the meeting. It's 6:30 on November 7th, 2024. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of the Town of Sherborn. As we've done in recent years, we're going to begin an executive session. So I'm going to ask the Town Administrator to please read the executive session agenda.
So your executive session agenda for this evening, November 7th, 2024, has two items. The first item is a meeting with Defense Counsel and Town Council in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A3, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM, 449 Massachusetts 444, 2007, to discuss Richard Thompson versus Town of Sherborn et al., Middlesex Superior Court Civil Action 2181 CV 01004, and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, specifically the Public Records Law, General Law, Chapter 4, Section 726, discuss privileged communication from counsel RE litigation. Item 2 is discussion regarding collective bargaining strategy for negotiations with AFSCME Council 93, Local 335, DPW Bargaining Unit, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3.
All right. Now, as chair, I declare that an executive session is warranted for the aforementioned and foreread items. And I move that we move into executive session for that reason. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
All right.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
All right, Jeremy, we sort out the necessary personnel. And now and turn off the recording as well, please. All right, it is 7:30 on November 7th, 2024. We have just finished the executive session portion of the select board meeting. We're about to enter the open session portion. Now I'm going to ask the town administrator to read the agenda. I will say though that I would like to make a we have no public comment, but I'll just make an opening statement at the beginning. So if you read the agenda, and then before we actually begin the agenda item number 1, I'm just going to make an opening statement. So Jeremy, please read the agenda.
Thank you, Eric. The first item on your agenda is an election update from Town Clerk Jackie Morris. Your second item is consideration of ratifying the DPW union contract, AFSCME Local 93. Third item is the consideration of to use surplus equipment funds. Fire Chief Ward is here. Fourth item is the consideration of driveway and street permit fees. Your fifth item is consideration of issuing a proclamation to Roger Demler. Your sixth item is the consideration of Eagle Scout proclamations for William O'Neill and Jack Edward Kozlowski. Your seventh item is consideration of appointment to the Sherborn Cultural Council for Carol Sano for a term to expire June 15th, 2027. The eighth item agenda item is the FY26 budget update from Town Administrator Jeremy Marset, followed by Town Administrator updates and Select Board reports and the consent agenda. I will say agenda number 10, a consideration of Phoenix Partners settlement proposal has been deferred from this agenda.
Okay, so does someone want to make a motion to modify that? Or are we going to skip over it? Are there any?
There's nothing on this agenda about Phoenix Partners.
Yeah, I think we have an old printout. I
Yeah.
think it might be the one that's on the web page. Let me double check the actual web page.
Yeah, if I can jump in, Eric, the one on the web page has been updated since yesterday. So,
Yes, it has, exactly.
right.
They'll probably print
So,
it out an older version. Yeah.
Yeah,
so the motion I want to make is to approve the agenda that's in my hands, not the one that you started to read, but it's because the one you started to read isn't the agenda.
Nonetheless, it is the agenda that's been posted. It was modified, and it is what's currently posted. I don't know what printout you have there, but it does show right now on the. I just checked a second ago. The Phoenix Partners on there. We can modify it. We can not modify it. We can simply say we're not ready to speak to it when it comes to it. Frankly, it doesn't make a difference. So, is there any motions relative to either amend or approve the agenda?
I'll move to accept the agenda with the deletion of the item that you mentioned for Phoenix.
I'll,
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
and Paul.
Aye.
Okay, I might as well. Thank you. I'd just like to actually, Zach, did you want to say something? You want me to read off what's on this letter?
If you'd like to read it, then I can add a few comments if you'd like.
Sean's got his
Okay.
hand up for some reason too, Eric.
Oh, Sean, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point that I'm probably not the only person in the audience that has no idea what just happened with the agenda. Which I have the agenda as written on the website, and I don't know what you just did.
So basically,
I don't think I'm the only one.
yeah, Paul printed out, had an old printout of the old agenda before modified and added confusion to the factor here. The agenda as read by Jeremy is the agenda as posted. It's accurate. But we removed the item number 10, the Phoenix Partners. Not ready to speak to it and touch base. We touch base with the main stakeholder of that as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Marion? Oh, okay, very good. All right, so I would like to read a statement here. We have the unfortunate situation of the passing of someone, a longtime member of the community and member of our fire department, has recently passed away. I'd just like to read a statement, have some acknowledgement on this, and also have a moment of silence. And if anyone wants to make a statement about it as well, after that, I think that'll be well received. The town of Sherborn and the Sherborn Fire and Rescue Department regretfully announced the passing of longtime Sherborn firefighter Bruce Muldoon. Bruce began his service as a Sherborn firefighter in 1977 and retired from the department in 2021, totaling 44 years of service to the town. Bruce was still active and assisting the department with many projects and was an involved community member in many other ways. He will be missed. So I'd just like to ask for a brief moment of silence on that, and then if anyone else wants to speak, they're welcome to do so. All right, thank you very much. Zach, does anyone in the audience wish to also make a statement?
I'd like to just add something. Bruce was an absolute treasure, and for those that didn't know him, he was for a long time the most active or one of the most active members of this department. He was a very committed member, responded to nearly every fire call that occurred in the town for many years, and he assisted with so many other projects in the department. He was also very active in the town forest wood cutting program. He helped coordinate the Brewfest every year, and I think recently this year he helped coordinate the 350th anniversary car show, and he did so much more for us. Thank you for reading that statement. We'll really miss him. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Zach. Okay, there's no other statements. We'll move on to agenda item number 1, 2024 election update. Jackie, how you doing, Jackie?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Eric. So I just wanted to update everyone. The unofficial results, I believe everyone saw. We had basically, if you only look at active voters, we had about an 88% turnout. Unfortunately, there were a lot of people that came in that were inactive because they hadn't returned the census, and unfortunately, I'm required, mandated by the state to inactivate people. They were able to vote, so it wasn't an issue. We're going to be able to count ballots that were received yesterday through, what's today? Yeah, yesterday through Friday, as long as they're postmarked by the 5th. We've only gotten a handful in so far. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. The numbers are definitely going to change because I have to, the official count, I have to add in all of the hand counted ballots, which includes people that are US citizens, registered voters and non-registered voters that have Sherborn history or lived in Sherborn. I have about 38, 37 of those that need to be hand counted and some ballots that didn't go through the machine. So there'll probably be about additional 60 votes added to the official results. It's not going to make any changes in terms of the outcome for any of the things, but it was crazy busy, even though with all the vote by mail, we still had about 1,100 people come in to vote in person. A lot. We had about 100 people between the people that wanted to vote in person that had requested a vote by mail and the inactives. So the office was very busy handling all of that. So historically, I think that this pretty low turnout considering in 2020 we had about a 93% turnout, and in 2016 we had like a 90% turnout. So it was a little bit lower than I would have anticipated, but all in all, I think things went well. Was pretty smooth. Like I said, it was crazy busy, and we had about 500, a little over 500 people come in early vote in person. And we've had about a 95% return on the vote by mail ballots. So
Good.
everything will
Well,
be.
I'll tell you,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was gonna say that the low voter turnout is kind of reflective of the nation as a whole, which is unfortunate. But I would say I voted on election day itself, and I thought it was very well run. So my compliments to you and your staff and the volunteers that ran it.
Yeah, everybody worked.
Very smooth.
Everybody's worked really hard. It's been a long haul. So, but anyway, yeah, so I'll be able to do the official vote count. I can do it after the 15th of February. I can't do it. I mean, February, I don't even know what month I'm in.
I
November.
know what you meant.
I
I know
can't
what you
do
meant.
it until after then.
That's okay. The 15th, that's a long time. Paul, you had a comment question.
Oh, I just wanted to thank Jackie. I know how difficult presidential elections can be and how much stress you have, not only the early voting piece and then the absentee ballots and then the voting by mail and then the day of election, and then you have this 4-day period afterwards where people's mail comes in. It's a huge undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you.
And when I voted, it was very well run, very smooth, perfect. Couldn't ask for a better job.
All right. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you very much, Jackie. Good job.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on. Consideration of ratifying the DPW union contract, AFSCME Local 93. Who's speaking on this, Sean or Jeremy? Anything? Either way, I don't know if we ever need it. We've met about this a few times in executive session. The board as a whole, we're on board with it. I think it was a smooth negotiation, and I applaud Sean and Jeremy for doing all the legwork and getting the terms done, and our town council just hammered out some final legalities. And is there a motion relative to the contract?
Yes.
Paul.
Yeah. I move to ratify the DPW union contract, AFSCME Local 93.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We'll let Diane figure out who seconded that. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
All right.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I'm aye as well. Very good. Okay, number 3, consideration to use surplus equipment funds. Fire Chief Zach Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm before you tonight to request permission to expend $14,190 for a fire gear washing machine slash extractor. Just a little bit of information to support that. This machine is used to remove carcinogens from our gear. These carcinogens are picked up at fires that we respond to, and they're an absolute threat to the health and safety of our members. Cancer, I think, as the board is well aware through some of our previous initiatives, cancer is a absolute epidemic in our industry. It's affecting firefighters and towns big and small. Our washing machine reached its end of life. It actually wasn't a certified gear washer anymore to the current standards. Like I said, this is the #1 tool that the department uses to reduce the exposure of these carcinogens to our members. So we're just looking for permission to expend these funds to replace it.
And just to clarify, you basically need this motion and a vote of the board to authorize this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
I'm happy to make the motion, but I wanted to make a comment first, which is how right Zach is. This is a critical piece of equipment. It is absolutely necessary for the safety of everyone who works for the fire department. And so I support this 100%. Therefore, I move to approve the request to expend $14,190 from the surplus equipment funds for the purchase of new fire turnout gear washer extractor.
Second.
All right, all in favor, Stephen,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Marianne,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
I might as well. Very good.
Thank
Very
you.
much, Zach. Okay, number 4, consideration of driveway and street permit fees. Is this Sean or is this Jeremy?
Sean, Mr. Clean?
Go ahead, Sean.
So I didn't, there's nothing in your packet for this. For decades, we've had 2 permits, a road open permit, which in Sherborn is generally just used by Eversource, sometimes Verizon, sometimes Comcast, mostly Eversource gas though. That's anytime you're gonna basically cut a piece of road open. And then we have also driveway permits. We're not really using driveway permits. It's probably no secret. We only have probably an average of 2 or 3 new homes per year, and a lot of them don't even have new driveways. But what generally most towns do is you do a driveway permit for any time you repave. I hesitated to do this for a while because we didn't have an online permitting system up and running. But there's some issues that arise when the town doesn't issue those permits, which is, there's no oversight. Even on a repave, there needs to be some oversight of when you allow, a driveway to be demolished. And that may not seem like a big deal, but it is when there's a 5 or 6% grade to a house and a storm coming. And, I'm saying these things, it's not hypothetical, and the chief can attest to this. We had a road completely get blocked by a driveway that got demoed. I would have never allowed it had they pulled a permit. So those type of things. The permit fee that I'm asking for on both the road open and the driveway is just $100. It doesn't seem like much, but it's fair. It covers the time that it takes, the admin time. Many we don't need to go out and look at all. A new driveway, we need to look at if there's any sightline issues or, the possibility of street trees, especially if it's a scenic road. And then it would progress down the path to a scenic road hearing and such. But this is how we kick it off. It falls into the building permit. The driveway permit anyway falls into the building permit for anything new. So Pam has already started working on setting stuff up so we can collect the fees. Because we've never had a fee. So that's what I'm asking for, is just to set a fee. We can update it if we decide we want to collect more later, but just something to cover admin time is fair.
So obviously this is a part of my day job, so I'm going to have way more questions than that. I know. Obviously, we didn't set up a revolving fund for this, right? So it's not like it just kind of goes in the general fund and then we kind of expend it from the general fund more or less, right? I know where I work, there's a revolving fund and it actually pays for an employee who's kind of committed to this. What were you thinking about the Eversource fees? You know what I mean? Is it that's the street opening fee? Was it just was that the one that was looking at $100 or that was a driveway fee? Like, what?
was
I can't remember about the street opening fee than a driveway fee.
100 on each. Eversource, we rarely have, there's rarely any work involved on our end. Other than, follow up sometimes if the road needs to be fixed, but it's a phone call to say, get out here and patch it again. I'm certain many of the other towns around are more than that.
Also, it is a Hawks. That's what I was making sure. Yeah. Where we are reevaluating where I am. And one of the things we're looking at is even like $1 a foot, which is, maybe sure it's not worthwhile, but we have inspectors to it. I guess maybe I'll talk to you more often. So I guess
Yeah. Well, Erica, if you don't mind, I think you probably have much more activity in Framingham where they're actually relaying line.
yeah, 30 to 40,000 feet a year.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that would probably apply to maybe a different type of permit, or you would actually assess that fee differently. In Sherborn, all we're doing is a handful, and when I say a handful, it's 4 or 5 per year of new services where there's already the existing line, or there's quite a few where it's just the corrosion control where they got to cut off taps, which I'm sure you see tons of in Framingham as well on the old steel lines, or just going in and redoing the corrosion control stuff. So it's like a 2x2 square. They go in, they cut the tap off, and they're gone. That's all we're seeing. We have no new installs. We'd have a completely different permit if they came in and said, "Hey, we got to redo the high pressure line through downtown." Which, that was the things of the 90s. We did that a couple times on Coolidge Street, Washington Street. This is strictly.
And I bet you the gas. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I bet you the gas mains in Sherborn aren't that old. And in Framingham, there's a lot of old ones. And the GSEP, the Gas System Enhancement Program, which actually replacing a lot of the old steel lines, whatever, upgrading, probably not that much around. So I guess the bottom line is, I guess what do you need from us? You need like a vote to kind of approve this, or is this more of an informational update?
No, you should vote. You guys always vote to approve permit fees for the building department and others. So I think you should just vote to approve a $100 permit fee for street opening and driveway permits.
Right.
So we can start collecting.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Okay, good.
The old driveway permits, I've been generally recommending that instead of that being a DPW issue, that it be a planning board issue, because the siting of the driveway is an important part of really site plan review and lines of sight for traffic. If you put a driveway in one location, maybe it's going to cause an accident because oncoming traffic can't see it. It really should be part of the planning board process for subdivision control, or even A&Rs, all that kind of stuff, rather than a DPW issue. Just don't really, I mean, that's the way it used to be done. All this was done by the DPW. Is that how they do it in Framingham? The DPW collects?
No, yeah, the DPW is department. Now, planning board, when there's a big subdivision, when there's a PUD, when there's a large development, will put it in a special permit when it's part of special permit. But the just like what Sean's talking about here, 99.9% of them is single family dwellings. Single family dwelling, boom, driveway, expansion of driveway, that's all DPW. Now, if it's on a scenic road, DPW issues the permit, but the appeal. So someone wants to appeal. Someone says, so scenic roads in Framingham are limited to 12 feet wide, our driveways 12 feet wide, 1 per property. Someone says, I want 2 in my property. I want 15 feet wide. I want something like that. The appeal goes to planning board. But no, DPW actually issues all driveway. We call them curb cuts. All driveway permits are issued by the Department of Public Works, with only exceptions of those that fall under site plan review.
So
Remember,
I
what
Mr.
John's
Chair-
talking about is single-family dwellings, really.
I don't have a problem with a curb cut. But the way he phrased it is, it's not just a curb cut, it's the whole length of the driveway. And that bothers me a little bit. So if somebody is repaving their driveway, but not being anywhere near the street, they still have to get a curb cut. They're not changing the curb.
No, it's only the interest of what's in the right of way. That's the only thing the town does. Anything past the right of way, remember the right of way goes past the driveway. So anything past the right of way would actually more likely fall under the building department. Being a Chris Kenny, it wouldn't be planning board.
Correct.
Anything on private
Or-
property would really be building commissioner. But you
If
would,
if I could real quick, before we get too far down this rabbit hole, because there's a bunch of hands up. I am not asking to change any requirements of that driveway permit. It's been ratified in it was in the 80s that it was approved, and then in 92, there was other portions of it that were approved. It's in the bylaws, it's in the code that's now been written, where I'm simply asking for a fee. And you're correct, I only have jurisdiction over the right of way. But that doesn't negate the need for a driveway permit. And anything over 500 feet, I still have jurisdiction for, on behalf of the town, and that was approved by the select board back in 92. And that should be of concern, because the fire department needs access to a house, and if you rip the driveway out, they suddenly don't have access to a house. So again, this is just a fee. This isn't any change of jurisdictions.
all right, so Marianne, do you, what's your question?
Yeah, the fee is paid into the general fund, so, since most of our roads are scenic roads, the planning board is usually involved in one way or another, but the fee goes into the general fund, so, the question is, who gets to use the money that's generated by the fee? I think it's fair that it go into the general fund, because the planning board can deal with this without expending any funds.
As revenue to the general fund, Marion, it's just general revenue that goes with all other general sources of revenue.
Right.
It becomes one part of your local receipts.
Sure.
And I gotta be honest, I think this should be done by works. I really do. I would not put this under the planning board. What they do is
Well-
just different. It's more just kind of in line with what Public Works does day to day for like the 3 driveways a year. I'd
Yeah,
recommend.
I wasn't suggesting that it go into the planning board budget or anything like that. I was just
Yeah, but
pointing out that most new driveways end up in front of the planning board because most roads are scenic roads.
Absolutely.
Eric, can I give a little context in this discussion just to help clarity?
Sure.
Yes, so the town general bylaw, there's a section, the new codification is actually chapter 125, it's driveways, was adopted by town meeting and Sherborn in 1994, was amended subsequently in several other town meetings, but that lays out when a permit is required and whose authority it is. It says permit required. No driveway shall be constructed or substantially altered at the point of intersection with a public street or public way unless a written permit is first obtained from the Director of Public Works in accordance with the rules and regulations adopted by the Select Board.
Okay.
That we're talking about a fee for that purpose this evening.
Okay, yes, and that reiterates what Sean said. It's an existing thing. We're just gonna charge $100. An existing permit, existing process. To me, it seems straightforward. Addie, did you want to add something?
I was only going to add that the process is, I mean, as far as the comment that Paul made about the sightline review, and I mean, the planning board's not equipped really to judge sightline in the same way. I mean, basically the process is a driveway permit goes before the public works director. That person's got the experience to understand the roadways and the sight line and the traffic, and knows they're responsible for the highways throughout town. If it's determined that driveway curb cut is on a road that's a scenic road, then the planning board gets involved because of the Stone Wall Scenic Road Act and any public shade trees. The planning board holds a hearing in conjunction with Public Works. So I just wanted to make sure that, yes, planning board's involved when it's appropriate, but it's really primarily for single family homes. It's in the jurisdiction of the Public Works Director and the building inspector.
Yep, very good. All right, are there any questions or motions relative to this? I'll say that I support this. It seems very straightforward. I like the way it's a simple flat fee and it's just one thing, and it seems fair. I can tell you from experience, it's not an unreasonable fee either. If anything, I might ding Eversource a little more if I could somehow, but I'm not going to go down that road. Any motions relative to this?
Move approval.
All right,
Second.
and a second. Okay, all in favor, Stephen,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I might as well. All right, thank you very much, John. Okay, moving on. Consideration of issuing a proclamation to Roger Demler. And to those who know, Roger Demler, longtime resident, very active resident, been active for many, many years, at least over 30 years, is moving out of town, and I'm gonna miss him at the meetings, no question about it. I've been working with him on a few different things, and we have here a proclamation for him, one that we've all signed. If it's okay, I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas Roger Demler, a longtime resident of the town of Sherborn, has served the Sherborn community for over 30 years as a volunteer on multiple boards and committees, and has generously contributed his time and expertise to the benefit of the town with great integrity, patience, and humor. Whereas Roger has served on multiple boards and committees over the years, making significant contributions that will long be remembered. As Sherborn's water commissioner for 30 years, he provided a valuable, detailed analysis of town center water resources that will continue to guide the town's planning efforts into the future. He helped the town navigate many other challenges as a member and chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Library Building Committee, the Traffic Safety Committee, and the Groundwater Protection Committee. Whereas during his tenure on these governing and advising bodies, Roger constantly displayed respect for his fellow volunteers, unwavering integrity, and a positive and cooperative attitude. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the town of Sherborn, on behalf of all of its citizens, extend our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to Roger for helping make the town of Sherborn a great place to work and live now and in the future. In witness thereof, we have caused the seal of the town to be affixed to this proclamation on the 7th day of November in the year 2024. On behalf of the town and behalf of myself, Roger, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any comments to this? Yeah, Paul?
I'd like to move approval that we issue the proclamation as read.
I'll second that, and I'll also add one mention of Roger serving on the Library Building Committee, which was more of a career than a volunteer position. So thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Yes,
Roger.
and I'd like to add that I learned at a meeting last night, actually, that Roger actually moved out of town yesterday. Is that correct, Roger?
You're muted, Roger.
Right. I mean, he doesn't need to
Get him.
respond, but
Yeah,
thank you for,
I moved last night.
and not too far, fortunately
Just
for
at
us.
the Ashland, Pond Street, just south of Shaw's.
So Roger, there's a law that allows us to appoint non-residents to boards and committees in town. And so I'd like to see some applications from you.
Yeah.
There's some choice
Go on.
ones I might skip.
Yeah.
I just, also, last night, I finally got a permit to build a new septic system for our house in Sherborn. So that took a while.
Good.
So I
Did I
appreciate,
get you dry? No, go ahead. Sorry, Roger. Go ahead.
I really appreciate what this town is doing these days. Last time I talked about things like this, I'm really impressed with the quality and numbers of good people who are stepping up to do their thing. I'm a bit jealous of Tara Arahan. She was on the Water Commission for about a year, and she got a water and sewer district
Yeah.
done, independent of the Water Commission. So I never got one of those. So,
Pretty good.
but thank you very much for the thoughts.
Good,
I'll
Best
say
of
as a
luck.
comment, obviously,
good luck with everything, Roger. And the only other demand is stay in touch.
Okay.
absolutely. I'll just make a general comment about in general. I know the library build committee was probably supposed to be a 2-3 year obligation. It turned to a 7 or 8 year obligation. And
Right.
those members, including Roger, stuck on it right through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's more than the coincidence that 2 of them have moved out of town in the last couple months.
Yeah, I've enjoyed
It's
saying to
over.
people, I'm from the library building committee.
I'm here to help.
All right, thank you all.
Did we vote
So-
on the motion?
No, we didn't vote
All right,
yet.
so I have a motion. We have a motion and a second out there, correct? So all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff,
All right.
Marion,
Aye.
and Paul?
Aye.
I am I as well.
Thank
Okay,
you.
next one up is consideration of Eagle Scout proclamations. William O'Neill and Jack Edward Kozlowski. I have here 2 proclamations. I'll read them unless someone else wants to. I have that there. Okay. Whereas William O'Neill has earned the rank of Eagle Scout, and whereas this accomplishment symbolizes his creative examples of service, strong leadership, and organizational skills which have made a difference in our community, and whereas William has demonstrated his ability to set a goal and exhibited a personal desire and tenacity to follow through successfully. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Sherborn, on behalf of all of its citizens, extend their congratulations and best wishes on this occasion to the Eagle Scouts Awards ceremony. In witness thereof, we have caused the seal of this town to be affixed this proclamation on the 7th day of November in the year 2024. Almost the same one. I'm going to read the other one as well. Same with the name. I think it's fair. That whereas Jack Edward Kozlowski has earned the rank of Eagle Scout, and whereas this accomplishment symbolizes his creative examples of service, strong leadership, and organizational skills which have made a difference in our community, and whereas Jack has demonstrated his ability to set a goal and exhibited a personal desire and tenacity to follow through successfully. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Sherborn, on behalf of all citizens, extend their congratulations and best wishes on this occasion of the Eagle Scouts Award ceremony. In witness thereof, we have caused the seal of this town to be affixed this proclamation on this 7th day of November in the year 2024.
So can I
Are we
move
the members
approval?
here? Sure. Please do.
You moved approval and I'll second, but I'd like to take a minute and tell the town what the 2 projects were.
Please.
So those of you that were at the beach this summer saw Willie O'Neill's 2 extremely sturdy cedar benches that are now on the beach there, completely waterproof and using ceramic screws, so there's no rusting of the assemblage. So it's 2 beautiful benches that were donated to the town, and coordinating with Jeannie on where to put them on the beach. And then a really interesting project from Jack Kozlowski, because during COVID, they live on their house backs up to Little Farm Pond, on the north side of Farm Road. So when they weren't in class, he would sometimes just go out there and do his homework. And there's an old rundown bench right on Little Farm Pond. And so he built a brand new bench, but it's partly governed by Audubon, that area, or maintained. So the bench has no nails in it. It's a plank, a horizontal plank with vertical stanchions, but it had to carve and create wooden pegs because they wouldn't allow any metal to be used in it. So if you ever have a chance to go up, it's a spur off of the trail to Little Farm Pond. It's a beautiful, beautiful bench that he put there. So I just wanted the town to know what the 2 of them did.
So you're
Oh,
parking a
well,
little parking area off of
Yeah,
Farm
you go in
Road.
the parking area, and if you walk north, and then the main trail goes sort of more straight north, there's a little spur that goes to the right, and that's where his bench is. It's right, it's kind of a secluded area right over the pond, so.
I'll look for it because I'll tell you, Little Farm Pond, I call it like the nicest hidden asset this town has.
It
People
is.
don't realize it. You know, I've canoed
I'll
there a
go
few
with
times
you.
and absolutely beautiful. Mhm.
Tell me when you're
That's good.
going, and I'll show you. I'll go with you.
Help me carry the canoe down there. I break my back every time, but it's
My
it's
other
beautiful.
evening job being chair of the Boy Scout troop.
Uh, that's that's great you do that. Absolutely. You know, I never made it past life. Troop 1 Sherborn graduate here. Never I guess just got to life. Anyways. All right, any other did we make a motion in a second on this?
Well, I was gonna add one more point, by the way.
Wait,
The Eagles ceremony is scheduled for Saturday morning at the community center, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. They'll get their Eagle badges at the community center in a ceremony. I think it's 10 a.m. on whatever the Saturday after Thanksgiving is.
And is this the first ceremony since the passing of Mike Hickam?
No, we had one earlier this year, I think, too.
Okay. Just kind of,
Yeah.
stop it there.
We're launching the first resale since the passing of Mike Hickam, though. We've been working
That's
on
right.
that.
That's right.
So can I move approval of the two proclamations that you read?
And
Okay,
I'll
I think you already seconded.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
second.
we're good.
Okay, so all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
All right.
Marion?
Aye.
And Paul?
Aye.
I might as well. Congratulations to the Eagle Scouts. Absolutely. Consideration of appointment to the Sherborn Cultural Council. Carol, I hope I pronounce this, Carol Sinut, for a term to expire June 15th, 2027. Carol, did I pronounce your name right?
Senate.
Senate.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, is there any questions or anything from the board?
Can I make a motion?
Well, please do.
Can I move to appoint Carol Senate for a term to expire June 15, 2027?
And I'll second it, and thank you for waiting an hour and a half to get to this moment.
My pleasure.
All right, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
All right.
Marion?
Aye, and thank you for serving, Carol.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're
And Paul? Paul, how do you vote?
Aye. Aye. Yes.
So I might have cut out there, and I might as well. All right, I might as well, to make that clear. All right, Carol, do you have any words or anything
No,
you
I
want to say?
just want to say I look forward to serving and thank you so much for appointing me. And
Excellent.
Very
I hope
good.
to serve, I hope to serve the town well.
Yep, and thank you for volunteering.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Carol.
Okay, I gotta look at the online agenda here because I have, okay, next one, FY26 budget development update. Is that Jeremy or who's speaking?
Yeah, that's me. Thank you, Eric. I thought as we're entering fully in the budget season and development, I'd give a bit of a little update on where we ended for FY25, the current budget, and how we look, knowing what we know now. It's quite early, but we have gotten some indication of some of the bigger budget numbers. Advisory has now issued the guidance as well. So today was able to update the budget model and put together a quick presentation here just to show you where we sit. So just a quick summary of where we are with FY25, the current budget that we're in, just to refresh your memory. You have the major sections of your budget, your education, town government, and then undistributed expenses, which are kind of shared between both school and the town side. The budget change going from FY24 to 25 for the schools, the elementary schools, the local schools was a 4% increase. The regional was a 3.6% increase. Overall town government was a 3.7% increase. And some of your bigger budget numbers in the undistributed expenses like healthcare was 3%. That was a very positive outcome. Originally, there was guidance that it was going to be higher, but that came in lower for FY25. So overall, town meeting approved a budget that increased 3.76%. You'll be having a tax rate hearing on December 5th, where you'll set your tax rate based on these expenses that were approved by town meeting this past spring. It's the way the cycle works. We're in line to have your tax rate set the first week in December. Here's a little more graphical picture of where all your budget goes. 60% essentially directly to the schools. About 25% is for public works, public safety, and general town government. And then another about 20% is those indirect expenses, being insurance, debt, and interest, stabilization, and so forth. About half of those shared or indirect expenses are attributable to the school department, whether it be for health insurance or debt that they may have incurred as well. So to fund that budget, your source of revenue for FY25 includes your property tax levy, which is mostly residential property tax, local revenues, and state aid. Your property tax revenue all in is about 91% of your revenue. Local receipts is 5%. Local receipts would be like the street opening permit fee that you mentioned or approved this evening would go towards and would be accounted for in local receipts. And then the final portion of revenue is state aid, which is about 3.5% for Sherborn, which is much smaller than many other communities, but it's based on many formulas there from the Commonwealth. So overall, your budget for FY25 went up 3.76%, or about $1.2 million.
Can I ask a quick question, or keep on this?
Yeah, feel free to
I won't
ask
waste.
questions anytime. I want to just get through it quickly for you,
Yeah.
but feel free to ask
Go ahead.
questions.
No, keep going. Those questions at the
Quick
end.
overview of how Proposition 2.5 works. So this is the example for the FY25 budget. If you start with the prior year's tax levy, add 2.5%, add new growth, that gives you your levy limit. Then you add any debt exclusions, which for the case of Sherborn has utilized excluded debt for essentially all of its capital. That then you arrive at your maximum allowable levy, and then you subtract out of that what would be your actual tax levy. So that's what you're levying to cover the expenses voted at town meeting, and then you're left with excess levy capacity in the case of Sherborn. The budget that was approved at town meeting allowed for about $800,000 in excess levy capacity to be available. So that's your current balance of excess levy capacity. When that excess levy capacity reaches zero, you are then at a place where your year-over-year budget increases would be limited to 2.5% plus new growth, or an override would need to be approved. And for Sherborn, that 2.5 plus new growth is it's a little less than $1 million per year. So when you get to zero excess levy capacity without an override, your budgets could increase just a little shy of 1 million year over year. You saw this chart from last year. This is how we ended up with FY25. And this shows the trend of excess levy capacity. Sherborn has fortunately had excess levy capacity. It kind of peaked in fiscal year 2022, and then it's kind of been in the decline with subsequent budgets, including the budget for FY25, where again, there's about $800,000 in excess levy capacity. Going into now FY26, which is a summation of a number of assumptions based on where we sit now. It's early, but we do have, so what went into this, a budget assumption was assuming the schools increased at the same as last year going into for FY26. So this is for FY26. Considering for town government, considering the guidance presented by advisory of a 2.5% COLA and basically a zero increase for expenses, including $90,000 for our assessment share for regional dispatch. That actually is that's a quarter of the full annual assessment, but in FY26, Sherborn will need to start paying towards it. We are currently, our stance is that we would need to pay 50% of 6 months, so a quarter of the full assessment, which is what's built into this model. The model also includes shared veterans services. Our veteran service agent or official we've been talking about, where Diana is unfortunately not able to continue in that role because she's not able to take the necessary training. So we've been looking around at various options. Currently, the most attractive is to join a group, Medfield and Walpole share through an IMA, veteran service officer, and some administrative help, and they base that on their population. If we were to join that through an IMA, based on population, Sherborn would be responsible for 10% of the costs of that, amounting to about $9,000 would be our cost to join that. So there's more to come there, but for the sake of this budget model, we've included that $9,000 increase. Some of the bigger increases are in retiree health insurance. We've heard from our carrier that there will be about a 25% increase in retiree health costs. That's a function of the Inflation Reduction Act shifted some of the costs that were in Medicare to private coverage, hence increasing the premiums paid. We're getting through Maya, our employee health insurance, they're giving us a range between 7 to 15% increase. They suggested that we plan on 10% increase for health insurance. That 10% increase, coupled with the increase in the retiree health insurance, would be an increased budget for insurance, increasing that 11% or an additional $195,000. Maya believes that this is the new norm for health insurance. We're back in a cycle of like 8% in the year over year for the foreseeable future. And each time we meet with them, suggest that the town might want to consider some plan updates or modifications in its planning. The other big item that that is a known going into FY26 is our assessment to the Middlesex County retirement. That will be increasing by $164,000, or about a 12% increase. This model does not include any changes to the way the town would be funding capital. It still assumes that all capital would be debt excluded. And in a second, I'll show you why that's the case, but we can certainly look at that as we get more information and budget submitted. We can see what might be able to be done there and provide more analysis. But with all that considered, this budget would be a 4.58% increase over the current budget, and an increase of $1.5 million. And as I mentioned, with Prop 2.5, the 2.5 plus new growth is about $1 million. So this, at very preliminary budget, would use about $500,000 of excess levy capacity to fund. As the next slide shows, so the excess levy capacity would drop under this scenario down to $170,000. Good news is that it doesn't trigger the need for an override. However, it does reduce your excess levy capacity. So as far as an overall budget look forward and schedule and budget calendar. Advisory has released their guidance. The finance director and myself will be submitting all of those out to the budget makers on Monday. Deb is working on all the spreadsheets for the budget makers to fill out. Those will all be distributed this Monday. Budgets are due back to Deb and I on December 6th, so they have about 3 weeks to work on the budgets, and then they'll be submitted back to us to help compile a consolidated budget, which we'll have compiled with narrative and distributed and submitted out to the select board and advisory for December 31st. And
Thank you very much, Jeremy.
wanna
And
just
oh,
leave
sorry, I
on-
thought you were
on
done.
one good note, I
It felt
guess.
like you were done.
Yeah, no worries. One good note, last slide here, is that we have, as you know, we've gotten certified free cash. It came in at 3.2 million, which is higher than it's been in the recent past. That is a function of higher than expected investment income revenue. So our revenues came in higher than we had estimated, leading to that increase in our free cash number. So good news is you have a bit more free cash than the average to consider as you're going into the FY26 budget. So with that, happy to answer any questions or.
Right. Okay, well, first, thank you very much. And I also want to thank Dan because I know he's done quite a bit behind the scenes too. You guys have worked together very well. And I appreciate also people realize this Jeremy has an MBA, has a strong financial background, and I think I'm very confident in the skill set there. I'm less confident somewhat in some of these expenditures coming up. The health insurance and retirement. I don't know how much you can do about retirement. It is what it is, but health insurance kind of big matzo ball out there, the increase, and from what I hear might be increasing years moving forward. So I think I'm gonna look for some kind of strategic ways of how we can help optimize some stuff and cut some expenditures. I know we have the what's it called? The police call thing, the
Dispatch.
call center. You know, that grant was kind of like diminishing as well, and I think that expense is gonna start hitting as well. And several items like that. I mean, I can go on forever about it. But I'd rather hear from Steven, someone who a longtime member of advisory.
Yeah, no, I thank you, Jeremy. This was a very good presentation. I think that probably the most I don't know, important slide that you showed, I think, was the graph of the excess levy capacity and where it's going to be based on this projected budget. And you know, I think this is not wildly, but a very optimistic projection to say that essentially the entire town government side is going to basically hit advisory's guidance. And then, I mean, the schools in the past years they have been actually kind of up and down, and so planning on them being the same as last year actually might be a little bit pessimistic, because there have been years that they have come in under guidance, and I think that would be important. I think that's one thing that Dan, I guess if you're listening right now, it would be important probably for you to convey that message to Dawn, you know, because Dawn has a particular way of handling her budget, and she's gonna come in as high as possible with her budget version 1.0. And it's like, sure, she can do that, but that's not gonna fly real well probably, because I can already almost guarantee that her budget 1.0 is gonna put the town over its levy limit. So you can if you can get ahead of that and let her know that basically budget 1.0, the way that she has historically done it, is going to be not legally possible. So, you know, essentially just trying to get the schools to come in at close to what they think they actually need with their first version. I think, Jeremy, it's great if I think that our hopefully now and future system where you are working with all of the town government budget makers to kind of streamline the process. And again, if you can explain to each of those budget makers what that graph actually means with the levy limit to get them to understand that it, they're not just arguing with, advisory in a empty room. Like, there's a real legal limit that we can't go over. And, even if we don't hit it this year, you just look at that trajectory. Absolutely, fiscal 27, we're going to hit the levy limit. There's no getting around it. We're going to hit the levy limit in fiscal 27. So trying to figure out ways now to plan ahead for that eventuality, I think, is a good idea. But
That's good advice. Very good
yeah.
advice. Dan, I'll take people in order. Usually I take select board first, but Dan's very applicable, very relevant to this conversation. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Eric. Just a quick follow-up to Steve's comments. But before I get to that, just Jeremy, this is a terrific projection. Super helpful. You and Deb have been great partners, and I've really appreciated that as we've worked on getting the budget stuff going this year with advisory. And as Jeremy kind of alluded to, just advisory just last night actually officially approved language for a letter that'll go out next week with a 2.5% COLA and flat guidance for expenses, as Jeremy mentioned. On Steve's point, Steve, I actually have had that conversation with Dawn and encouraged her to come in with a budget 1.0 that for their version 1.0 that was closer to where they really want to be. And particularly reflecting back on last year's experience where they came in with a really high number and it, in the roll up kind of blew everything out of the water and made things look, really bad. They didn't end up great, but, it looked much worse at the beginning. And so I have encouraged her to not do that again, because when we see the roll up in January, if they're coming in with numbers like they did last year, as you said, the excess levy capacity is going to go negative, and then we'd be thinking, okay, either very significant budget cuts or an override. So I am hopeful, not sure, but hopeful that when they roll out their budget starting next week and then in December for the region, that they will do that and kind of make the process go a little bit more smoothly.
Marianne.
Yeah, I have a question and a comment about the Tri-County Regional Vocational School. That budget, has gotten much bigger lately. We know they're building a new school. I didn't quite understand the numbers that you put on that. It looked like not that big a change, and yet there was 83,000 or so increase that I don't know what, we can look at those later. I don't want to get into those weeds, but what kind of input, maybe Dan knows the answer to this, into the Tri-County expenses? That seems like an expense. It's sort of a formula that we have to pay. And yet I'm wondering what kind of participation we have in their budget process.
Unfortunately, Mary, not much. It's an assessment that will be provided to the town, so we'll receive that in the coming months. It's based on enrollment, and it's based on their debt service as well. So there's a calculation as a member community that they apply, and it'll pump out basically what our assessment is.
Can I just follow up on that? Don't we
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Don't we have a member of the school committee being a resident of the town? We used to
have again.
Don't we have, I thought
Yeah, John Dowse is a representative on the Tri-County.
Tri-Valley, yes. Yes, we do.
So if he's on this school committee.
Yep.
And that's where we have some ability to influence things just through our representative to the school committee.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't implying that we're not going to do our part or that we're going to second guess Tri-County that much, but it seems to be sort of a black box up to now. It would be good to hear more about it.
Yeah, I believe it is prescribed. I think it is transparent. We just have to maybe just know, let's learn about it. That's all it is, from what I understand.
It's not a black box at all, though. We have the detailed construction budget. John's also on the building committee as well as the school committee.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the overall, they set the budget. So they can decide on paper clips that are made of gold, and they can decide on paper clips made of plastic. They're constantly making those decisions. And ultimately, it's the school committee who decides what that budget is, which then starts the formula and ends up with the assessment.
Are
So,
you talking about Tri-County or are you
Yeah.
talking the Dover Sherborn?
no, I'm talking about
Not
Tri-County.
gonna try
Well,
counting.
Tri-County, I mean, we're a flea. We don't even have two, I think we have 2 students there right now.
Yeah.
But we have a member on the school committee.
Yes,
I
I
get,
know,
I
but
get what's
we're-
being said. I just don't think like they're gonna make such drastic difference of budgets that it's actually gonna affect our flea amount, really amount. So like maybe it makes a % or something like that. All that being said, I will say that if we want, we can look into explain it better. I do know it's prescribed, it's transparent. The amount that we're paying on the capital was presented to us. I don't remember offhand, but there was actually a document when they had the estimated how much the new building was going to cost and how
Yeah.
much it goes based on blah 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 segments, so much fixed and so much per kid and so on like that. Or historically, how many kids we've had there. There's a whole thing to it. I just don't remember it off the top of my head, but it is out there. And like Jeff indicated, it is transparent if we just simply look for it. And if you want, we can maybe have it explained or some documents can come to it.
Well, one unique attribute of the operating costs is we pay based on how many students we have, but we pay for a minimum of 5.
Yes.
Right.
We only have right now, I believe, 2 that I know of. So
Yep.
we're not just paying for the 2 students we have.
Yeah.
There's a minimum threshold where we pay for 5 students. The-
Yeah, and you know, that's fair. It's important to have this option for
Yeah.
students.
And I will say, this is a point of interest, is that when they actually took the vote to build the school, Sherborn had the highest percentages of yes for total number of votes. Obviously, we're a small
Yeah.
amount overall, but we had a highest
There you
percentage.
go.
I was proud of that. I really was. Okay, any other questions more about the budget now? Right there. I also think it was well presented. And you know me, I tend to be fiscally conservative, and I don't see myself supporting a 2.5 over. I don't want to say anything ahead of time. You know, I mean, who knows what happens when it pops up? But yeah, we've had a series of 2.5 overrides back in the early 2000s and late 90s, early 2000s, and we had the 5th highest taxes with property values not even in the top 10. And I give the same speech all the time. Is that I would say do anything you can to avoid an override. At least that's my opinion. I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
I agree.
Yeah.
Everything you said,
Mm.
I agree. That's been my position for 20 years.
I mean, I will say
Absolutely.
also, Eric, though, that I support that position, and I also support your sort of other publicly stated position of wanting to get more of our capital under the levy limit. But again, it's like when
Mhm.
when you see this graph, right? I mean, we have what I think it was like $2.1 million or something in debt service. That which is it's basically all excluded debt. And that's the thing, is that like our levy limit right now, or our excess levy capacity, is what, 700,000. And so it's like, so realistically, something like 1.5% of, I mean, $1.5 million or so of our um debt service is actually over our levy capacity. It's not like we're pretending like, oh, we're excluded. It's like, no, we can't actually put that under the levy limit because we would actually be over the limit, right? And now as that levy capacity is shrinking to 0, it's going to be very challenging to get more capital under the levy limit, right? And I mean, it's a challenge, right? Because you've also said that one of the difficulties with Prop 2.5 is that it's not indexed to inflation. It's 2.5% no matter what, right? I think when we see this downward slope, we could think, oh, our budget makers have been profligate and they haven't been, doing a good job of keeping their budgets down. I mean, I think that the rapid decline in our excess levy capacity has coincided with, historically high inflation rates, right? I mean, now I was on advisory during a lot of that downward slope, so I'm pretty familiar with all of the different budgets that went into it. And I'm pretty confident that most of the budget makers couldn't have done a lot of meaningful cutting that would have flattened that slope out. I think it's just the reality of the sort of economic climate that we're going through right now. But meanwhile, because as Jeremy alluded to at the very beginning, our residential tax levy is 91% of our town's budget, right? A very and you know, I should say that the tax levy itself is 91%, and the vast majority of that is real estate. But the point being that it's like, if only 9% of our revenue is coming from local and state aid, you're basically just relying on the tax levy, and the levy limit is not indexed to inflation. And so, so long as inflation is over 2.5%, there's very little that you're going to be able to do to realistically stop that downward slope, unless you're actually cutting services, right? And that becomes the next question. All right, well then, what services are we going to cut in order to avoid crashing, right? The other alternative is that new growth number, right? The new growth gets added to the levy limit. So what can we do to promote new growth in a way that is, you know, smart and acceptable and palatable for the town as a whole? I think that is a big question that needs to be tackled as well. We can't stick our heads in the ground and pretend like we're just going to have no new growth and we can just curb spending and everything's going to be fine so long as we curb spending, because the reality is that inflation dictates that the spending is going to have to go up. So there's a lot of different things that are moving around, but they're all kind of moving in the wrong direction right now. So, well, I guess other than free cash, but you know, well, I guess one question for advisory to tackle would be, how can we leverage our free cash position right now to reduce probably our debt service, right? So could we use free cash a little bit more liberally than we have in recent years for our capital expenses in an attempt to reduce the debt service in coming years? That would be one question, right? One strategy.
So before I recognize Paul, I just want to add on, because I want to address two things there. You are right. I mean, I had this dream to make that service come within our levy into an. Still would like to make that partially so. I don't think we should have like 100% every capital item we do be an override per se. But I think it should be partially so, and then maybe phase it over like 10 years. The other thing was the routine capital expenditures, such as the roadway. I pick on the roadway one a bit. That's like 400 grand every year, and it's expense I support. I support that 400 grand every year. It's like, you know, even I know Jeff's theory about like if you're people who live here 10 years, the length of the bond and the length of infrastructure. If it's 400 grand every year, it doesn't matter. The length of the service life doesn't matter anymore, because it's always gonna be 400 grand. And that's one I'm looking to, like Jeremy and Dan and I talked about. I mean, it was Stephen talked about kind of phasing into kind of like this type of fund where you kind of are not paying interest on it. A fund where basically, you know, you can, you basically deposit money, not pay interest on it, and expend that money. You have to do it slowly. You can't just 1 year say like we're going to stop bonding it, and now we're going to, you know, use stick 400 grand in the operating budget, but make like, I don't know what number it'd be, 20,000 a year, 40,000 a year, maybe 40,000 a year over 10 years. Slowly phase in, contribute to that fund, bond less, contribute to that fund a bit more, bond a little bit less, and then your expenditures rotate between them like that. So I mean, that's something which I'm very excited about doing, and I do think that is a savings, because now you're not paying whatever that interest is on that bond for that routine expenditure, and that's something I've looked at. Before I recognize you, Paul, at the end there, Stephen kind of acknowledged Dan. Dan, did you want to say anything to whatever Stephen said, or should I recognize Paul here? Mhm.
Go ahead to Paul.
Yeah, Paul, go ahead with your hand is raised.
Okay, I just want to point out in response to what Stephen was saying, that basically you need new growth or you need an override. Those are the alternatives facing Sherborn, or cutting expenses. That what many communities are doing is a fourth option. They look at the services that are included in the tax levy and they take it out of the tax levy and make it fee-based. So for example, DEP is pushing for the creation of what's called stormwater utilities, where the extent that we're providing storm drains like we do in the downtown area and other parts of the town, that we charge for the use of those storm drains. The same thing with trash facilities and landfills, that we actually charge a fee to use the recycling center that we have based on what the costs are. So if the budget for the transfer station is $200,000 and there's 2,000 users, then you charge people for a sticker to use the transfer station at the basis of 2,000 users into 200,000 expenses, and you charge and you collect it, and you levy. That relieves the pressure on the tax levy and makes it fee-based based on use, so that those who are using it and causing the expense then pay the cost thereof. The town has considered these alternatives over the years, and back in the day, it made a tax difference that if you put everything into the tax levy, then you can deduct it on your taxes. So we consciously made an effort to bring everything into the tax levy and have the tax levy pay for everything. The problem now is that the new tax code puts a cap on deductions for property taxes and things like that. So there isn't the tax benefit anymore. Yet we're continuing to include all these items in the tax levy, as opposed to where more naturally would be fee-based. So the alternative that could be considered by advisory, could be considered by the board, is to move some items out of the tax levy entirely and put it into a fee-based system.
All right. There. Dan, did you want to respond to that or say something else? Or you have the floor no matter what you want to say.
Thanks, Eric. It's an interesting idea that Paul raised about, thinking about fees and whether that's, an additional option. I wanted to jump back to what Steve said and just emphasize the point he made, that the downward slope in the excess levy capacity line really is largely a function of the high inflation that we had and the additional costs for materials, wages, and everything else. And right, many other towns have hit that zero limit sooner than we have, and hence the number of towns that are, have been trying to do overrides and so on, in the last year or so. So I mean, the setup here is it's going to be a tough year for advisory. I think there are going to be some hard choices, and I think we're going to have to work really hard to try to think through some of those choices and to come up with a view to present to the town of how to work through that, because can't have no new growth and low taxes and the level of services that people want. Those three things just aren't all possible. Just can't be done. So again, the guidance that went out in that'll go out next week in that letter was for flat budget guidance. If you read the text of the letter, you'll see, though, that we really emphasize that we do want budget makers to be thinking about opportunities for cost cutting, either from reorganization or from other efficiencies. And I think as this kind of information, we get to the budget roll up in January and we're looking at real numbers. The guidance letter did warn that advisory may take a little bit of a even stronger view on the need to be really, really tight about spending. So I think it's going to be a very tight year. I think advisory is going to take a really hard look at budgets, and there are going to be some hard choices.
Well, that's a good warning. Good warning. Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions? Comments? This is good food for thought. And again, thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Dan, for the work you're doing on this. And I know people know my thoughts. So If there's not anything else, I guess we'll move on. I believe we moved the agenda around a little bit. TA updates is next, correct?
I believe so, yes. A few updates for you folks. Actually, one that's not on here, but late breaking. Sean and I had a good conversation. Actually, Mass DEP reached out to us about another possible grant for water treatment. Actually, this would be to for Woodhaven. So this could they're going to invite us to apply for water treatment funding to help with the current project that we're doing at Woodhaven, which may allow us to reallocate $173,000 of dedicated ARPA funding to something else. So that was good news that we just received today. We need to put together the grant application, get that in. The timing's going to be tight, but there may be a creative way that we can obligate the ARPA funds to be flexible and be able to use it for another purpose, but have a fallback if we don't get the grant funding. So good news, we might have another 173,000 in ARPA funds to allocate to some other capital need. On the grant front, we were able to get an extension to be able to salvage $48,000 in Green Communities grant funding to complete the town hall attic insulation. After a number of discussions with Mass DEP in coordination with vendors, we were able to retain that and move forward with that project. Electric supply. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
We've been tracking we have an electric supply contract for municipal buildings that it was coming to a close from the previous contract. We've been tracking the market. It seemed to reach a trough about a week back, so we entered into a 12-month agreement for electrical supply for municipal buildings that will save us $15,000 from what we would have otherwise in the market. So that locks us in for 12 years, some certainty, and will provide a savings over what we would have to pay otherwise. Update on the Sherborn History Center and Museum. A designer has been selected. TSKP is the architect that the team selected. We have a working group of a number of stakeholders that have been involved with the selection. We had 8 different firms submit proposals. We interviewed 2 firms. We selected one, negotiated a contract. They're under contract, actually providing some advice already. We've had a kickoff meeting, have another meeting coming up on Monday with the group, where they're going to start to present some preliminary ideas of the space in the library basement. So that's moving along. Our director of assessment, yeah, Paul?
What happened to the federal earmark that we were seeking with our congressman? Did that ever go anywhere?
I did. We submitted, Paul, and they didn't reach back to us that was included or not. I did hear through other press releases from Auchenglass's office that they did were successful in getting some project in Newton. But I did reach out at your request just recently to see if there was any news on what our submission was. So I haven't heard back yet, but thanks for reminding me to check on that, Paul.
It's just that it'd make a big difference if we had some federal funds to help us pay for this, as opposed to using other more limited sources.
We're actively looking at other grants sources as well. There are some other federal and state funding sources that we're seeking that may help towards the construction. So George, Margot, Martha, we're all looking for any other sources of funding. So
thanks.
We'll continue to follow up with Representative Auchenglass's office. Update on our director of assessing. As you know, Wendy gave notice her last day with the town of Sherborn is next week, the 12th, November 12th. The position has been advertised for some time now in the MMA. at the MMA and also through the MAAOA, which is the Massachusetts Association of Assessing Officials. We've gotten through the grapevine 2 folks that are interested, actual 2 resumes submitted. But we have in the interim worked out a plan. So Sherborn will have a tax rate set on December 5th. Before Wendy leaves, she's helping us get all the information put in. We've worked out a transition plan to make sure that you do have a tax rate. After your tax rate hearing on the 5th, there is a little bit of a lull in the assessing department as far as demands on their time. But starting in January is when abatements start to come in. So that's really when we need to have a firm staffing plan in place, either a new assessor or some other interim help through the month of January.
I sorry if I missed it. When's our last day?
November 12th,
November 12th. Okay.
next
thank
week. There are a number of assessing positions advertised now out there. There's a shared assessor for Wenham and Hamilton that's been advertised. There's about 3 or 4 positions open, unfortunately, that we may be competing with, but there has been some interest out there. So more to come there. I'll be speaking with the Board of Assessors on how they'd like to move forward with vetting candidates and interviews and so forth. Alluded to the Veteran Services Officer. We've talked to the towns of Dover and Natick, trying to have some arrangement there. We've reached out to, there's a regional Metro West Veteran Services District that we've talked to. We've talked to Millis, we've talked to Holliston. The most attractive offer, if you will, right now is with Medfield and Walpole have an arrangement where it looks like they are interested in us joining because it actually helps reduce each of those towns' share of the cost. So it's a budget reduction for them. It allows us to come in to get the services rendered. And also as part of that, they would be pulling in the group a little bit more administrative help. So it seems to be a win for all. We will look more into that, get some more firm costs, put together a draft IMA and all that. There'll be much more vetting with the select board coming up, but that need may need to start this fiscal year and not wait until FY26. So you'll see more shortly on that in meetings to come. An update on the sustainability coordinator. Earlier this week, the Holliston Select Board approved the IMA that you folks approved a little while back. So we have an agreement. We'll work to get your signatures and Holliston Select Board signatures on that, and we can advertise the role. There'll be 15 hours of work in Holliston and 20 hours of work supporting Sherborn. It'll be a Sherborn position. Housed here in Sherborn, we'll have office space here for the individual. The result of that shared agreement will lead to a $20,000 reduction in your annual budget as a result of sharing that position. Yeah, that's what I have for updates.
Oh, thank you very much, Jeremy. We shouldn't have any questions or make too much of a discussion of it. So unless anyone has anything else, I'll see if there are any select board reports.
Just a comment. I wanted to thank Marion and Stephen for their role in a meeting with the community and with a developer of 40B projects in the town. Thank you for the time and effort you put into it. And I thought both ably represented the town and the thoughts that the select board have expressed. My thanks to both of them. And another comment is that I just wanted to take a moment and explain that Diane and I work on the minutes almost constantly. And because of that, and because sometimes we have to make some corrections to the minutes, I make an effort to do the motions so that when the motion has to be corrected, I don't have to go track down somebody to get their permission to fix what was done. It's just makes for cleaner minutes and it's less burden on everybody. So thank you for indulging me and letting me do these motions. It allows me to police myself, if you will, and not anybody else. Those are my comments.
I just kind of want to make a comment myself, to thank Wendy Ellisi. I mean, we mentioned that, she's moving on. And, she's been key in the administration and key as the chief assessor for quite a few years. What's it been, like 6 maybe? I don't want to calculate. I'll get it wrong. And she transitioned this community from kind of more volunteer to a professional board of assessors, and really one of the first in the state, which allowed us to get some of the first pickings of some great members on the board of assessors there. And just want to thank her for her accomplishments, and I'll miss her. Yeah, Marianne, you had something you want to say?
I just wanted to make a follow-on comment to Paul's comment about the meeting with Mr. Murchison and his the public discussion that we had. For the next meeting, I'm hoping to put together a summary of what was said by the select board in that meeting, so that we have a sort of benchmark. And I'm going to just write a draft and let Stephen, who's helped me on it, vet it, and we'll let the select board take a look and see if it correctly reproduces your thoughts from that public meeting. I think it's just good to have it on paper.
Okay, point. Jeff, you want to say something?
Yeah, we probably should have had Diane say this, but we didn't say at the beginning. We're having a Veterans Day ceremony in Town Hall on Monday,
Yeah,
including a lunch, and I think the Boy Scouts are coming in to do a flag ceremony. I think there'll be a couple of high school speakers coming in. Oddly, though, you'll be surprised at this. I've learned that Mass General doesn't give their employees Veterans Days off, so I'll have to see what my schedule is. But I might be able to come. But we should we should probably done it at the start of the meeting. But it'll be a very nice event on Monday.
Yes, well, absolutely.
It
And thank you, Nelson,
starts at 11 o'clock at Sherborn Town Hall, 11 a.m. Sherborn Town Hall, Veterans Day.
The same
that-
time,
is that
time and date as
posted?
signing of the armistice. Absolutely. What's that, Marion?
Is that posted on the website? Where can we, where will people be able to see that?
If it's not already, we'll make sure it is, Marion, on the website.
And thanks again, Jeff. You're right. That was something should have been on maybe an agenda item. All right. Anything else? What do you have here? I gotta look at. I have old agenda printed up like Paul.
Consent agenda.
Agenda. There we go.
Can I move approval of the consent agenda?
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Go on, Jeff. There you go. All right. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Aye.
Paul? I am I as well. All right. Any motions relative to this meeting?
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Second. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I am I as well. All right.
He's-
Thank you,
he's
everyone.
not going to say nay. All right. Thank you, guys.
I almost did. But I was like, yeah, nah, man, this one. Only we could turn in an easy 11 item, simple agenda to 9 o'clock.
Yes.
All right. See you, everyone.
That's an
Yeah.
early meeting. 9
Thank
o'clock,
you.
that's all it is.
Take care.